for coming. Paul, first of all, let me begin by saying thank you to you and your team at EMO. Tremendous work you're doing to coordinate what has been a provincial-wide weather event, which started in southwestern part, but is doing its final hit on Cape Breton Island. But in the meantime, there was a lot of damage and around, particularly with our physical infrastructure, but probably most importantly with our power infrastructure. And so thank you for that coordination. Minister Porter, who is here with me, spent the first night of this incident here at the command center on behalf of our government. He has a background in emergency services. Minister, thank you for being here and providing that support. I also want to say thank you to the men and women who are not in this building but who are responding to our citizens across the province, whether they're members of our government, federal, provincial, municipal, or the private sector, and our utility, Nova Scotia Power, who have been out working diligently to respond to the concerns. I want to assure Nova Scotians that this event, before it happened, had a lot of preparation leading into it here at EMO. The coordination has taken place. I just came out of the command center, and as I said, I was in a room full of leaders in their respective workplaces who every day go to work and become leaders in that respective place. But in this place, they allow one person to take charge, the incident commander who's here, and all of them are responding, putting the resources that they have of the respected organizations to deal with the events that are happening in our province. There's an ongoing assessment of that damage currently with our partners. We have our own helicopters, some other helicopters in the air looking at transmission lines that go through our province to look at where the damage is happening. We're pleased to say that we're seeing some positive results. That number of outages or people without power continues to come down, and we will continue to work with the utility to make that happen. The federal government's response with the Army has been very supportive and been positive. Federal Minister Goodale has been in contact with Minister Porter. The Prime Minister and I will be speaking later today from their support. But my message to everyone, this storm, the aftereffects of this storm are still here. We want you to be safe. Whether you see power lines down, please avoid them. They may not be providing power to your house, but they certainly are delivering power. In some cases, that is very dangerous. We have experts in the province who are able to deal with that. Let them deal with that. If you see issues in and around trees, be very careful. In some cases, you'll be able to clean those up, but I encourage all of you to take an honest assessment of that. And if you require expert support, then have them come in and remove those limbs and trees off your property. And finally, I want you to reach out to your neighbors, some of whom will be living alone and some who you might not otherwise see on a normal basis. Let this be the day that you check in. They may require some support. It could be something very simple as helping them clean something from their property or just making sure that they're safe. That's the one thing that all of us can do as we finally begin to make the assessments and find the preparation to get life back to normal as quickly as possible. So again, thank you all very much for your support, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have some. Perfect. Oh, I thought I'd get there quickly.
Premier, EMO and emergency responders are asking folks to stay home. Obviously, safety and restoration efforts are underway, but yet businesses keep opening and the roads are just packed. What are your thoughts on that, and what is the message from the province? Is there any way to try and mitigate the surge of traffic we're seeing?
Well, obviously follow the advice of EMO and the experts that are here. The reason they're asking people to stay home is really to ensure that the crews get to be able to get to work, to be able to clean up debris, to be able to deal with those dangerous power lines that are around and get power restored and get our communities back to some level of normalcy. I would encourage all Nova Scotians, this is the day to stay home. If you don't have to be out, this is the day to stay home and check on your neighbor. Let this be a block party event in Nova Scotia, but it'll be every block, which means when you're at home, you can go and check in on your neighbors. Before I came here, we had communications with our neighbors in the valley, checked in on my father-in-law to see if he's okay. That's the kind of thing we want Nova Scotians to be doing in their own communities. There'll be plenty of time for you to come down and get your coffee. You don't have to do that today. I think it's important to allow the level of professionals that we have in this province go out and do their work. Whether it's our own EMO, whether it's Halifax Regional Police, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, whether it's Canadian Armed Forces, whether it's Nova Scotia Power, whether it's transportation infrastructure renewal. Many of those men and women have been on the road since early parts of this morning to look at where is best way to remove the debris that's in the roads, which roads are damaged that will require heavy equipment, and what are the ones that we can go in and just move the limbs off of. And that work can happen much more easily and much safer if people heed the warning and stay home today.
As of now, do you know what part of the province has been hit the hardest?
I think this weather incident hit every part of our province. Depending on where you are, the level of severity depends. I know it started in tip of southwestern Nova Scotia yesterday. There was a lot of heavy tree damage. We saw some of our own schools have been damaged a bit. Obviously here we've seen a lot of activity in HRM, but the storm has moved its way all the way through to Cape Breton Island. I think earlier this morning when there was a briefing, they told you this has probably been the hardest hit of any storm in terms of customers without power, and the damage has been widespread. But we're confident that the preparation in advance of this storm will hold our teams in good stead and provide us to get back to a level of normalcy very quickly.
Nova Scotia Power in touch with you constantly? I mean, main thing right now, of course, is people have no power. What have they said to you?
Nova Scotia Power is here. They have people on the command center. The president has also been in touch. We knew early in advance. They had put teams all across the province. They've been tracking this storm along with our team here at EMO. So they are out in all parts of our province. They assured us there are people coming in from outside to provide some other support. My caution to all is to make sure, though, that if you see down power lines, avoid them. I can't say that enough. And I want to tell you, the men and women at the utility have been out, making sure that they can get the power back as quickly as possible. I know in some parts of our province they were out last night. But like all of us, the message to all Nova Scotians yesterday was to be safe. That same message was to the utility, and the utility delivered that to all of their employees, that we want to make sure the conditions are right for you to go out and then come to make sure we repair the power back.
Nova Scotia Power is also saying they have some choppers in the air to try and help out. Are any of those government-issued choppers? Are you guys helping out in any way?
Yeah, so our Department of Natural Resources has choppers that are in the air. I think Canadian Coast Guard have some that are in the air. As you know, many of these power lines run through pretty remote areas of our province to bring power into our towns and communities, and they're flying over those trunks now to see where the damage is. The first blush that I've heard, there's been some positive information coming from that, which is turning into being able to put people's lights back on and power back in.
Premier, a lot of eyes are on that crane that collapsed, and obviously the significant weather we had. There's been a lot of criticism from residents about a perceived lax approach from construction sites to this storm. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the message was communicated loud and clear to all Nova Scotians, not only on the commercial side, but on the residential side. I'm really proud of the work that all Nova Scotians did in their own properties. I think removing the debris, they heeded the warning, to be perfectly frank. We were obviously concerned about what happened on some of the construction sites and the debris that happened. The Department of Labour will be looking at the crane, and that's on that site, and will file a report. But I think one thing that is demonstrated to all Nova Scotians is that when they get a warning like this, they need to pay attention to it. Our weather is changing rapidly, and when we get a severe weather warning like this, let's take the precautions that are required, meaning putting our stuff away, because it's not only is it protection of your own property, quite frankly, it's protection of others, and protection of their properties as well. And I think this is an important message, and I think it's one that we will continue to deliver. I know the folks here at EMO and the Department of Municipal Services with our partners have been communicating that. And there's no better time now, once we get the power restored and get things back to a level of normality, to go back out and remind people this is why we deliver these messages. It's why we take precaution. We always plan for the worst and hope for the best. And that's what we need all citizens to do, even those on construction sites, to plan for what could be the worst weather, not what we believe could be the best weather.
Just last summer, obviously tomorrow, a lot of folks are thinking about back to school buses that might not, well, do you have any insight on that?
We're assessing that right now, not only here in HRM, but across the province. We will be communicating in time to parents. But we've gone out and looked at our own physical infrastructure with our schools. It was reported that one of them obviously had a roof issue, but there's others challenges. But it's also a question that we'll weigh out here with the MO about what level of work had been already accomplished, and if required, we will keep people off the roads tomorrow as well. Thank you all very much.
Just one more. How did you fare? How did your town fare?
Where we lost some trees around the community. Power has been out since yesterday mid-morning, but it's been, when I see some of the destruction that people have on their personal properties, we got a few limbs to clean up and we'll be fine. We caught the one side of the storm. I think the bulk of the storm had passed us. Last night around 7 o'clock, we've seen a big change in our weather at home and the rain that was there. So we have a few roads, but we'll get the power back on, and people will be able to get back to a level of normalcy as quickly as possible. I do want to, just before I close off, I do want to acknowledge Minister Porter again. Minister Porter was here while I was at home, while others were at home representing the government with the authority to be able to do what was required as quickly as possible. We stayed in constant communication. That meant his wife and children were home by themselves in his place in Windsor. So I want to, on behalf of our government minister, thank you for his work. He has a much broader background in emergency measures organizations and volunteer firefighting and paramedic and working in the Central Office of Paramedics. So it was a wise decision by the government to send him and leave me at home. Thank you. You okay?